The marinara sauce I'd perfected over 20 years splattered across my chef's whites as my Uncle Tony hurled the plate at the wall behind me. In the dining room of Rossini's Italian restaurant, I could hear the last customers hurrying to leave, their romantic dinner ruined by the screaming from the kitchen. "You're fired. And don't ever come back," Tony roared, his face purple with rage. "You think you're better than us? Think you own this place? Get out!" Behind him, my cousins Marco and Vinny applauded like they were at a comedy show. My Aunt Rosa stood in the corner, counting the night's receipts as if nothing was happening. Just another Thursday night at the family business. My name is Sofia Rossini, and I'm 38 years old. For 20 years, I'd poured my soul into this restaurant. I'd started washing dishes at 18, fresh out of culinary school, believing my grandfather's promise that family takes care of family. Now I stood in the kitchen I'd redesigned, holding the recipes I'd created, wearing the uniform I'd paid for, and being thrown out like garbage. 20 years, Tony, I said quietly, untying my apron. 20 years I've worked here. And for 20 years you've been a pain in my ass, he shot back. Always with your fancy ideas. We need better ingredients, Uncle Tony. We should update the menu, Uncle Tony. The health department requires this, Uncle Tony. I'm sick of it. The irony was that those fancy ideas had saved the restaurant. When I'd started, Rossini's was a failing pizza joint with 3 tables and a week-old pot of sauce. I'd transformed it into the hottest Italian restaurant in the city, with reservations booked 3 weeks out and food critics singing our praises. But to Tony, I was still just his brother's daughter. The orphan girl he'd, generously, taken in after my parents died in a car accident when I was 17. "Fine," I said, placing my knife roll on the counter. "I'm done." "Damn right you're done." Marco laughed, high-fiving his brother. "Maybe now we can run this place right. Make some real money instead of wasting it on Sofia's expensive ingredients." I looked around the kitchen one last time. The commercial-grade equipment I'd sourced, the organized stations I'd designed, the staff who were avoiding eye contact because they needed their jobs. Then I walked out, leaving behind 2 decades of my life. What my uncle and cousins didn't know, what they'd never bothered to know, was that I owned more than just the recipes. I owned the building. My grandmother, Nonna Rossini, had been the smart one in the family. While her sons fought over who would inherit the struggling restaurant business, she quietly bought the building it sat in. She'd worked 3 jobs to afford it, understanding what her children never did, that in real estate, the real power isn't in the business but in the land beneath it. When she was dying, she called me to her bedside. Not Tony, her eldest son. Not Michael, my father. Me, the teenage granddaughter who visited her every day after school. "Sophia," she'd whispered, pressing a key into my hand. "The building. I leave it to you. Promise me. Never tell them until you must. They are vultures who think with their stomachs, not their heads. Protect yourself." I'd kept that promise for 20 years. The building's ownership was held in a trust, the taxes paid automatically, the lease to the restaurant renewed every 5 years without anyone reading the fine print. Tony thought the landlord was some distant corporation. He'd never bothered to check. I went home to my small apartment, poured myself a glass of the good wine I rarely opened, and called my lawyer. "Maria, it's Sophia. I need you to review the current lease for Rossini's restaurant." "Finally ready to tell them?" she asked. Maria had been managing the trust since I'd turned 21, watching me work myself to the bone for people who didn't appreciate it. "Not tell them. Evict them." There was a pause. "Sophia, are you sure? This is your family." "No," I said, taking a long sip of wine. "Family doesn't throw you away after 20 years. Family doesn't mock your work while profiting from it. They're tenants. Nothing more. What grounds for eviction? Check Section 15 of the lease. The one about maintaining professional standards and not damaging the property." Maria laughed. "The plate-throwing incident? Among others. I've been documenting Tony's temper for years. Photos of damaged walls, broken equipment, health code violations he refused to fix. I even have video from tonight. The security cameras I installed last year caught everything. Smart girl. Just like your nana. I'll file the paperwork tomorrow. They have 30 days. 30 days. After 20 years of 7-day weeks, 18-hour shifts, and being treated like hired help in my own family's business, I could wait 30 days. The next morning, my phone exploded with texts from the restaurant staff. The breakfast prep was a disaster without me. No one knew the supplier passwords. The special sauce I made fresh each morning was missing. 3 cooks had already quit. I turned off my phone and went to the beach. For the first time in 20 years, I watched the sunrise without thinking about what needed to be prepped for lunch service. A week passed. Then 2. I heard through mutual friends that the restaurant was struggling. Food quality had plummeted. Regular customers were complaining. The head waiter, Giuseppe, who'd worked with me for 15 years, called to tell me that Tony had replaced my handmade pasta with frozen, my award-winning sauce with Jared. He says it tastes the same and costs less, Giuseppe reported. The customers, they know Sophia. They all ask where you are. I was fired, remember? He's telling people you abandoned the family. That you got too big for your britches and walked out. Of course he was. In Tony's version, he was the long-suffering uncle who'd given his ungrateful niece everything. The truth, that I'd worked for below minimum wage for years, that I'd never taken a vacation, that I'd built his success while he took the credit, that didn't fit his narrative. On day 29, I got a call from Marco. Sophia. Hey, cousin. His voice was fake cheerful. Listen, we may have been a bit hasty. Why don't you come back? We can work something out. Not interested, I said. Come on, don't be like that. The restaurant needs you. The restaurant needed me for 20 years. You just noticed now. Look, I know Dad was harsh, but you know how he is. Hot-blooded Italian, right? He didn't mean it. He meant it enough to throw a plate at my head. That was okay, that was bad. But we're family. You can't just abandon the family business. I didn't abandon anything. I was fired. Publicly. Humiliatingly. Your exact words were, maybe now we can run this place right, remember? Marco's tone shifted. You think you're so special? We don't need you. We're doing fine. Then why are you calling? He hung up. Day 30 arrived with a crisp autumn morning. I dressed carefully. Professional blazer. The designer heels I'd never worn in the kitchen. My grandmother's gold necklace. I looked like what I was, a property owner about to reclaim her asset. The process server met me at the restaurant at 10 a.m., just as Tony was unlocking the doors for lunch prep. His face went from annoyed to confused to furious as he read the eviction notice. What is this? He bellowed. Eviction? This is my restaurant. I've been here for 25 years. As a tenant, I said calmly. And now your lease is terminated for violation of sections 15, 22, and 31. You have 30 days to vacate. You can't evict me. I'll call the landlord. He'll straighten this out. I am the landlord, I said, savoring each word. The building's been mine since Nana died. You've been paying rent to my trust for 20 years. The color drained from his face. That's impossible. The landlord is some company. SR Holdings, I supplied. Sophia Rossini Holdings. Marco and Vinny had come running at their father's shouts. Now they stood frozen, processing what this meant. You own the building? Vinny whispered. But you never said. Nana told me not to. She knew exactly what would happen if you knew. You'd either try to steal it or stop paying rent, figuring family doesn't charge family. Just like you figured family doesn't pay family fair wages. This is illegal. Tony sputtered. You can't. I can and I am. My lawyer will be in touch about the damages to the property. Those plates you like to throw. They've left quite a few holes in the walls. That's coming out of your security deposit. After everything we've done for you. Aunt Rosa had finally looked up from her receipts. We took you in. We gave you a job. You used me, I corrected. You took a grieving teenager and worked her like a dog while paying her pennies. You took credit for my recipes, my improvements, my connections. You built your reputation on my back and then threw me away like garbage when I dared to suggest I deserved better. We're family, Tony pleaded, all his bluster gone. You can't do this to family. You did it to me first, I said. I'm just returning the favor. 30 days, Tony. I suggest you start packing. I turned to leave, but Giuseppe caught my eye. He was smiling, along with several other longtime employees. Oh, and Tony? I added. When you're gone, I'll be reopening. Same name, same recipes, my recipes, but under new management. Any staff who want to stay on with decent wages and actual respect are welcome to apply. You can't use the Rossini name. Marco shouted. That's ours. Actually, Maria, my lawyer, interjected. Ms. Rossini trademarked the name and all associated recipes 5 years ago. You've been operating under her license. The full scope of their situation was sinking in. No building, no name, no recipes. 25 years of business gone. Sophia, please, Tony's voice broke. I'm sorry. We can work this out. We could have, I agreed. 20 years ago. 10 years ago. Maybe even last month. But you had to throw that plate. You had to scream that I should never come back. Well, Uncle Tony, I'm not coming back. But I am taking back what's mine. The next 30 days were the longest of my life. Tony tried everything: guilt, lawyers, even sending my other relatives to plead his case. But Nana had been thorough, and so had I. Every I dotted, every T crossed, every violation documented. They tried to destroy the kitchen before leaving, but I'd anticipated that. Security cameras and a court injunction prevented any sabotage. In the end, they slunk away in the middle of the night, leaving only empty spaces where they'd removed their personal items. I reopened Sophia's 3 months later. Same location, same basic menu, but with crucial differences. Fair wages for all staff. Respect in the kitchen. Quality ingredients without compromise. And my name on the door. Opening night was packed. All the old regulars came, along with food critics curious about the drama. Giuseppe managed the front of house with pride. The young cooks I'd mentored over the years returned, eager to work in a kitchen free of flying plates and screaming matches. The review in the city paper the next week was glowing. Sophia's rises from the ashes of Rossini's, proving that sometimes the best ingredient in any restaurant is respect. Tony opened a new place across town. It lasted 6 months. Without my recipes, my connections, my work ethic propping him up, he discovered what he really was: a mediocre cook with a bad temper and worse business sense. Marco and Vinny both came crawling back, resumes in hand, when their father's new venture failed. I turned them away. But we're family, Vinny had pleaded. No, I corrected. We're relatives. Family doesn't throw each other away. A year later, Sophia's had expanded to the building next door. We'd won 3 major awards and had a wait list stretching 2 months out. I'd promoted Giuseppe to partner and given shares to every employee who'd been with me since the Rossini's days. Sometimes I think about Tony, about what might have been if he'd just shown a little respect, a little appreciation. If he'd seen me as family instead of free labor. But then I look around my restaurant, really mine, not just in name but in deed, and I realize this is better. I built something new on the foundation Nana left me. Not just a building, but a business based on respect, fair treatment, and recognizing everyone's contributions. The building was my inheritance, but the real gift Nana gave me was the patience to wait and the wisdom to protect myself. She knew her sons, knew their greed and pride would eventually create the perfect moment for truth. 20 years I waited. 20 years I worked. 20 years I documented every slight, every thrown plate, every violation. And when they finally pushed me too far, I didn't just walk away. I pulled the foundation out from under them. They threw me out like trash, not knowing I owned the bin. 30 days later, they were the ones on the curb, wondering how they'd never bothered to read their lease agreement. Nana would have been proud. The building she worked 3 jobs to buy didn't just give me revenge, it gave me freedom. Freedom to build something better, something fair, something that truly honored the Rossini name. And every time I walk through my restaurant, past the photos of Nana on the wall, I whisper a thank you. For the building, yes. But mostly for teaching me that sometimes the best revenge isn't just success. It's eviction. It's